Good morning, this is Chuck Terry, and I'd like to talk to you a little bit about something we call organizational excellence. And you might say, boy, that's just a buzzword that gets thrown around, means something different to everyone, and I would agree with that. I think it's kind of a mystical out there, something that we're all trying to achieve in our businesses. But unfortunately, if you're like me, most of us probably kind of came up doing things a little bit differently. We kind of flew by the seat of our pants. We had a vision. We tried to make it happen. And in reality, we experienced something we call entrepreneurial horror. And that's about as far from organizational excellence as you can get. In fact, it's probably more of an organization at risk. And, it's those things where you wake up in the middle of the night and you go, oh my gosh, am I going to have enough money for that investment? Am I making the right decision? Whatever that might be, I'm always worrying, I'm always stressed. And there's a better way to do it. And I'd like to define what I think organizational excellence is. And it's something like doing 10% of actually doing your job and spending 90% more being the leader, working on the business instead of in the business. A situation where maybe you don't have to show up for 3 or 4 months and the company just keeps right on cruising. You're able to operate with strong metrics, stay on track, adjust as you go. And we believe there's really 6 things that go into building an organizationally excellent company. Number 1, planning. Where do you want your company to be in 3 to 5 years? You know where you are, but do you know where you want to be? Once you've got that worked out, number 2 really becomes positions. Your company's going to probably look a little different in 3 to 5 years if you plan to grow. What's that going to look like? What is your org chart? What are you going to have to shift? Do you have to add new departments? So we really want to work through that. What are the positions in that org chart for the future? Number 3 is really going to be, once I've got that down, I've got to address the people. Do I have the right people? Do I have the right people on the bus and the right people with the right seats on the bus, if you want to borrow that phraseology? People are absolutely our number 1 asset. How do we find them? How do we train them? How do we hire them? How do we coach them? How do we motivate them in order to achieve those goals that we've set in the planning session? Once we've got that worked out, it really comes down to process. And our process really needs to be aligned with our positions. So what are those positions, and do we have process? What we find is oftentimes there is process, but it's old process, it's a dated process. It hasn't kept up with the times. So how do we go in and put a process in place that's going to help us effectively achieve those 3 to 5 year goals that we've set? Once we've got that worked out, the next piece, highly critical, is what we call performetrics. And what performetrics are, if I could say that, is actually a combination of what is the performance and what are the metrics that we use to measure that. That has to be totally symbiotic and aligned with your process. If it is, then we're tracking the right things. We're staying on the leading indicator side of things versus the trailing indicator side of things, and we can go in and make adjustments. If we're slipping off track, we're measuring the right things, we're holding people accountable to the right things. Once we've got that dialed in, the 6th step is something we call passion. And passion has to come from the leader. That's a leader-driven. It trickles down. It doesn't mean you have to be a cheerleader. It just means you need to have a high level of belief in what you're doing and a real strong desire to drive forward, a belief in your people, a belief in your process, a belief in your system that we can achieve these goals. And that passion has to be palpable. How do we develop that? All put together, we call that organizational excellence. It's a 6-step process broken up into 24 easy to replicate steps. And replicate is the key word, because we don't just do this once and forget about it. We've got to keep going back and forth and going through this process and continue that cycle of evolution in order to maintain that organizational excellence once we hit it. So that's a little bit about what we think organizational excellence is. Have a great day.